Welcome back to the... Nice rebrand, right? I'm fed up with my management controlling every single aspect of my work, and so I'm walking away from the old. Goodbye to the series formerly known as the Deep DISCOG Dive, and hello to... Even I don't know how to pronounce it. The shift might be bumpy at first, but trust me, I'm gonna be able to do so many new things that I've always wanted to do, like cover 39 albums in one video. What the fuck? Today, we're talking about Prince. Let's dive in.
How rude of me. I haven't given you enough time to freak out yet. You may do so now.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
In June 1958, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Prince Rogers Nelson was born. By the way, that's not a title or anything. It's not Rogers Nelson, who is a prince. Prince is literally his name. He got that name from his father. John Nelson was a prolific jazz pianist, and during shows with his jazz vocalist wife Maddie, his stage nickname was Prince. It was primarily through his father that Prince developed a deep love for music, writing his first song at the age of 7. His influences as a kid were legends in the jazz and funk scene: the Ohio Players, Sly Stone, James Brown. However, not all of Prince's upbringing was about the music. He suffered from seizures for a good while until, according to him, an angel told him he wouldn't be sick anymore. On top of that, Prince's parents split when he was 10. His mother remarried to a man whom Prince wasn't especially keen of, and he would bounce between living arrangements for the next few years, staying at his mom's, his dad's, and his friend Andre Simone's. It was with Andre that Prince started his first band in 1971 called Grand Central, which was named as an homage to Graham Central Station. Their first drummer was Prince's second cousin, but he was later replaced by another friend, Morris Day. As they played gigs and events around Minneapolis, Prince started doing more and more arranging for the band. Shortly before leaving Grand Central, Prince and Andre joined 94 East, a band started by Pepe Willie, Prince's cousin's husband. While Pepe did all the lyrics, Prince did all the songwriting. But along with his father's influence and his experience playing in Minneapolis, there was one last core piece of Prince's upbringing, one that would impact his lyrical sensibilities. His mom's stash of poems. Stumbling upon his mom's more explicit reading material introduced young Prince to the sensual world, and his own journey through it would inform some of the more memorable Prince lines. The first recording to ever feature Prince was Minneapolis Genius, the historic 1977 recordings. You can tell Prince held this album in high regard because he never acknowledged it. Shortly after graduating from high school, Prince recorded his own demos, which got to local businessman Owen Husney. Owen was in awe of the man who would eventually write Chlorine Bacon Skin, and signed the 19-year-old Prince to a management deal. New demos were then recorded, leading to interest from several big labels. Prince would eventually sign with Warner Brothers, solely because they would let him have creative control, production control, and publishing rights for his first 3 albums. In April 1978, Prince made his debut, For You. Me? You and I are about to embark on an epic decade-spanning saga, and we need to start off on solid ground so as to build trust. Let's start that trust-building process now. This album's alright. If anything, For You's real success is as a resume for the rest of Prince's career. The big selling point is that Prince played all the instruments on this album. Plus, he wrote and produced nearly all of the songs. The only non-Prince credits were Chris Moon, the producer of Prince's first demos, helping to write lead single Soft and Wet, and Tommy Vicari, the executive producer Warner Brothers brought in because they weren't actually fully convinced Prince could produce his own record. Soft and Wet is a great single, a blueprint for many future Prince classics. Passionate professions of tenacious tenderness, bolstered by layered vocal harmonies, tight bass lines, and sick synth solos. By the way, that song, along with all the other ones I mentioned, will be in a playlist for you to check out. Links in the description. You can't take 2 steps on this album without a display of raw musical prowess. The acapella invitation of Opener For You, the city pop homage of My Love Is Forever, the precise build throughout the breakdown on Just As Long As We're Together, the ludicrous guitar work on I'm Yours. The only song that flat out did not click for me is In Love. And you know what it is? The synths. They're too squishy. They sound like if you stepped in a puddle and in that puddle was an Oberheim 4 voice. It's a good first work. I'm proud of you, Prince. Next time, maybe consider making a song where you want to be someone's mother. And their sister, too. For You was a modest success, with its 2 singles making a small impact on Billboard's soul charts. Warner did their best to promote said singles, Soft and Wet in particular. They even ran a contest for the single where they gave away waterbeds. You know, 'cause they too are soft and wet. Get in the For You promotional waterbed, honey. Time to sex. Prince did not tour for You, but he did have a band ready. They played a few shows in Minneapolis in early 1979. The lineup included Andre on bass, Bobby Z on drums, Des Dickerson on guitar, and both Matt Fink and Gail Chapman on keys. The second show they did was mired by stolen gear, a snowstorm, and electrical issues. So naturally, this was the show Warner Brothers executives attended. Altogether, those execs did not think they were ready for the road just yet. But this did not deter Prince. He was already pushing ahead to the next album. Prince was given a budget of $180K for his first 3 albums, and to make For You, he had spent $170K. Someone help me budget this, my family is dying. 18 months after his debut, we were treated to Prince. Now, a sophomore album being a step up from a debut album isn't shocking, and Prince the album was proof of that upward momentum. But what's funny to me is that even with a max budget 17 times less than its predecessor, it sounds better too. Maybe that's production and engineering talking, or maybe I just like the songs better. I Wanna Be Your Lover, for example, is an excellent opener and first single. Dare I say, it's the first outright great Prince song. The groove, the melody, the breakdown, the part where he says, "Why You Wanna Treat Me So Bad" soars right out of the gate with that guitar hook. When We're Dancing Close and Slow tenderly brings you in before Bambi punches you in the face, Sexy Dancer gives you an ice pack and coaxes you back out onto the dance floor. I Feel For You is a good song, but it wouldn't get its flowers just yet. In a few years, Chaka Khan would take it and score a big hit. Prince did this thing throughout his career where he would write a song, it would go to someone else, and then it would be one of their biggest hits. What a benevolent Prince. Prince the album is really good. Buy stock in Prince now before it's too late. Oh, sorry, this album came out over 40 years ago. I try to cover up-and-coming artists, and this is what I get. Prince the album gave us 2 solid R&B hits, it got a spot on the Billboard Top 200, and Prince landed his first ever TV performance on American Bandstand in January 1980. Prince himself was even interviewed.
Did somebody tell me you played every instrument on this album? Is that correct?
Maybe.
No, that's you're very shy, modest. How many instruments do you play?
1,000.
It was kinda awkward, but still, Prince wasn't the smash that Prince or Warner Brothers wanted. Plus, Gail left the band because Prince's lyrics conflicted with her religious background. She was replaced by Lisa Coleman. Oh, also, Matt Fink started wearing scrubs on stage, which gave him the stage name Dr. Fink. In October 1980, Prince revealed his dirty mind. By this point, whatever money was remaining was a fraction of that $180K. And the sound of Dirty Mind reflects that smaller budget. Compared to For You and Prince, Dirty Mind earns the first word of its title with a rougher, stripped-back sound, mixing together the pop and funk of the first 2 albums with more rock and new wave. It was mostly made at his home near Lake Minnetonka, and the songs featured all come from the demo recordings. Frankly, I love it. Dirty Mind also earns the dirty because of its lyrics and presentation. The cover just screams,
"This man is coming to f*** you."
And these words from this man on this album are dirty. This record is over 40 years old, and there are lines here that would get Twitter abuzz if they were dropped today. Not even the waters of Lake Minnetonka could purify this man's music. The first half tracks, like the title track and When You Were Mine, are good, but the second half is the truly ascendant material, in my view. Uptown is flat out excellent, one of Prince's best dance tracks ever. Head depicts Prince absconding with a bride before her wedding, and her giving him head, Strong by Trapped, the rare CD single. Sister is, okay, what the fuck? And Party Up ends the album with a raucous dance along. To think all of this is packed into a lean 30-minute package is a wonder. And if it sounds like I'm overly grateful for a Prince album with that runtime, it's because I am. In hindsight, Dirty Mind is the real birth of Prince as most people knew him. Not just in critical acclaim, not just in discourse-stewing lyrics, and not just in appearances that pushed the boundaries of masculinity. It was all of that together that was building the foundation of Prince. The only thing Dirty Mind wasn't was a big sales success, but things were still looking up. Prince and his band celebrated their accomplishments with their first SNL appearance in 1981. However, Andre Simone left after the Dirty Mind tour, and from what I've read, he and Prince were not on good terms. He was replaced by Mark Brown, stage name of Brown Mark. Prince's next record wouldn't drop for another few months, so he took the downtime to release more music. You see, a clause in Prince's contract let him bring in and produce 4 other artists. And in July 1981, we got the debut album by The Time. Prince handled production and arrangements, but lead vocal duties went to Morris Day. The Time made music similar to Prince's first few records so that he could keep exploring and reaching new heights. And Prince would soon reach a very new height. Warner Brothers decided to keep Prince on for more records, and they felt he was ready to open for one of their bigger acts. And so, in early October 1981, Prince opened for the Rolling Stones for 3 shows at the LA Coliseum. This was it, Prince's coronation as an icon. They booed him. The crowd booed Prince all 3 nights. Prince and his band weren't even able to finish their set on the first night, and while they did get through the other 2 nights, they were treated to heckling, slurs, and thrown objects. Now, first, kudos to everyone on that stage for going through that and continuing to pursue anything, let alone music. Someone leaves a mean comment on one of my videos and most of my vital organs stop functioning. Second, how far on the wrong side of history do you have to be to boo Prince? There are probably some people from those shows who are still alive today. I would genuinely love to meet one and ask them, why did that even happen? The closest thing I could find to a first-hand explanation was an anonymous letter to the LA Herald Examiner after one of their critics gave a review of the show. The letter states, "You obviously are a fan of that not saying it group, or you wouldn't have lied about it. I just wanted you to know that us WASP rock and rollers pay to see white performers and not saying it, or tawdry critics like yourself. President Reagan has proven once and for all that liberals, not saying it, and minorities are out. Thank God for that." It's insane that this was ever written. It's even more insane that you could change like one word and it could have been written today. A few days after that debacle, Prince released, Jesus, I thought that said Anime Christian for a second, Controversy in October 1981. Controversy demonstrates a trait of Prince's that will further define his legacy: leaning the hell in. The lead single and title track is Prince saying to the Pearl Clutchers, "Yeah, I am that hot bitch. What of it?" The same confidence from Dirty Mind is still on full display here, and on tracks like Sexuality and Let's Work. He also uses the greater spotlight to speak on the times, like on Ronnie Talk to Russia, where he addresses President Reagan directly. This is a good time to bring up another facet of Prince's lyrics. Every so often, Prince will stop singing about to talk about politics or society writ large. I'm not going to tell you these lyrics are amazing, because they're not. His political musings often come across like a homeless man goes to a job interview in a nice suit but gets mugged by inflation. A soldier is sent off to war and dies when old problematic tweets resurface. A landlord evicts a single mother and her 10-month-old Bud Light can, and that can was Joe Biden. Prince's societal insights are not going to change how you see the world, but I also don't think they need to. They're ketchup. They're Jim Belushi. Their job isn't to blow our minds, it's to be within reach. Back on the topic of defining traits, Controversy, the album, also gave us the debut of Prince and Purple. Oh, and how could I forget? This album was also where Prince started abbreviating certain words, like on the closer, sure, it's something simple this time, but soon enough, Prince will start abbreviating C, 2, 4, and even I as EYE, or a drawing of an eye. Okay, that last one is just objectively more work. Like, even in his autobiography, he's still doing the abbreviating and spelling I, the letter, like EYE. Anyway, overall, Controversy is a good time, and it shows that the grime and grit of Dirty Mind still works when you give it a little sonic spit shine. controversy continued Prince's steady rise, with its title track being his first to chart internationally. Yet even still, something wasn't right. Prince was still firmly considered an R&B artist, which at the time meant his music was locked to one audience. Prince wanted to expand, to be a truly global artist, and so for his next album, he had one goal: to write hits. October 1982 saw the release of 1999. Boy, I hope this album doesn't hurt me.
Don't worry, I won't hurt you.
Oh, thank God. There is no reason not to start with this, so let's do it. 1999, the song is incredible. It was the first Prince song I remember having strong attachments to, as a fixture of any Snare family car rides. It would be a while before I heard the song out of that context, which is when I realized this song is dark. Inspired by HBO documentary The Man Who Saw Tomorrow, 1999 is about partying under the threat of nuclear war. I know I said Prince wavers when he weaves politics into his songs, but 1999 is absolutely an exception. I adore this kind of setup, a subtextual stake that gives the partying emotional weight. It's why I love another classic song, DJ Got Us Falling in Love by Usher and Pitbull. 1999, the song lays out another goal of this album. Take what worked about all those past albums and go as extra in sound and scope as possible. Little Red Corvette was thought up in the back of Lisa Coleman's Mercury Montclair. It describes a one-night stand with a bulletproof chorus.
I guess I should know by the way you parked your car sideways. I wouldn't last.
I'm sorry, Prince, that's just how my car is. Delirious smuggles in the new wave with this weird high-pitched synth line. DMSR, Lady Cab Driver, and Automatic are great straight funk tracks that stretch on for several minutes yet never overstay their welcome. All the Critics Love You in New York is basically Prince doing LCD Sound System decades before James Murphy lost his edge. An International Lover brings the curtain down with an excellent ballad. I can't imagine Prince ending an album with a ballad as good as this anytime soon. Hey, is that just on my screen or are you getting that too? 1999 was the moment Prince crossed over. It was the first album of his to land in the top 10 of the Billboard Top 200. 3 of its songs were top 10 hits in the US. The title track was his first international top 10 hit. He coined what would be known as the Minneapolis sound. His audience expanded past just R&B enthusiasts, and the music videos for Little Red Corvette and 1999 got heavy rotation on MTV. That made Prince one of the first black artists to get regular play on the channel. Though Automatic's video didn't get any play, I wonder why. Prince and his band toured 1999 from November 1982 to April 1983, and you know what? I'm tired of referring to them as just his band. Isn't it time they got a name or something? It was after 1999 that Prince started crediting his band as The Revolution. Now granted, this wasn't the first time you may have seen that name. It was actually on the cover of 1999, in very small font, and backwards. You couldn't miss it. Even though Prince's band was starting to get fleshed out more, Prince himself was still the one primarily recording, writing, performing, producing, and arranging on these records. However, there was one last change to make before The Revolution could be televised. Des Dickerson left the group after the 1999 tour to explore other opportunities. He was replaced on guitar by a good friend of Lisa's, Wendy Melvoin. So once the tour was done, Prince went to Warner Brothers to sign a new multi-year deal. But Prince had one request, just a little something. He wanted a movie deal. What's more, he wanted a movie where his name was right in the title. This was an impossible ask. It still is, looking back. This shouldn't have been possible. But still, Prince's management team, Joe Ruffalo, Stephen Fargnoli, and Bob Cavallo, soldiered on and got him a movie deal. Also, Bob Cavallo is the father of Rob Cavallo, who would go on to produce records for Green Day and Paramore. What a random connection! In June 1984, Prince released Purple Rain. It's great, 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 it's great. Purple Rain is the kind of record that earns its reputation 10 times over. Prince and the Revolution blend together all of the genres they had worked in up to this point. Funk, soul, new wave, rock, and sprinkle on top some of the best pop hooks of the 80s. You know how people say you can tell someone's a nepotism baby if their parents are in blue on Wikipedia? You can tell an album's great if all of its songs are in blue too. Let's Go Crazy is a slightly more optimistic take on 1999's covert catastrophizing. An overall message of, we're all gonna die one day, let's have fun while we're here. And boy is this track fun. I always found this line in the opening funny. Like, I know it's supposed to be a play on words, the elevator being the devil, but it's also funny to imagine Prince hitting the wrong button on an elevator and being like, go crazy, and punching a hole through the top of it. The Beautiful Ones is one of Prince's best ballads ever, purely for the way he sells the hell out of the last few minutes. Computer Blue is like a spiritual successor to 1999's Something in the Water Does Not Compute. It reflects Prince's lyrical obsession with the interplay of technology and romance. It also has an uncredited song inside it called Father's Song, which has a credit for Prince's dad. Darling Nikki throws in some risque lyrics for good measure.
I knew a girl named Nikki, I guess you could say she was a sex fiend.
Yeah, I knew this one girl. I guess you could say she liked to When Doves Cry sees Prince digging into his past, his parents' flaws, and how that has shaped him into who he is, for better or worse. The LM1 drum machine pulses underneath that disgusting, dinky little earworm on the chorus. And there's no bass. There's no bass, what the hell? By the time you reach the back-to-back dance floor bait of I Would Die For You and Baby I'm a Star, this album's fate has essentially been sealed. And then he hits you with this. I hate to break the fourth wall and reveal how the sausage gets made, but YouTube's copyright system often prevents me from playing the amount of audio I actually want to play for you. I bring this up because if you haven't heard it, I wish I could just play you Purple Rain, the song. It's not a song that gets its power from description. It gets it from you basking in its 8-minute glory, from actually listening and relieving yourself of whatever has been weighing you down. You leave the song a different person. I don't know how else to put it. Maybe you could say that about most songs, that they don't get anything from someone describing them, but that would imply most songs are like Purple Rain, and they're just not. Oh yeah, the movie too. The movie Purple Rain came out a few months after the album. It follows the kid, played by Prince, as he navigates the Minneapolis club scene, a new romantic interest who just arrived in town, and a difficult family situation. Apparently, it's not autobiographical, but given the similarities to his own life, well, if it really isn't, then it was the role Prince was born to play. Other Prince-related acts like Vanity 6 and The Time are also in here, and Morris Day looks so young. God! He looks like Caleb McLaughlin cosplaying as Richard Pryor. It's not amazing, and some parts have aged poorly in the way that a lot of 80s movies have aged poorly, but it is certainly worth a watch for anyone interested in Prince or Purple Rain. The best parts are just seeing Prince and the Revolution perform, especially since the songs they're playing are from the album Purple Rain. Have I mentioned Purple Rain is good yet? To quote the late upstate New York car dealership magnate Billy Fusillo, Purple Rain was huge. The album sold like hot pancakes, multiple singles in the top 10, Prince won the Oscar for Best Original Song Score, but the album's largest impact wouldn't be seen for a few years. Imagine this. A mother comes home to see her daughter dancing to Darling Nikki, the most explicit song on Purple Rain. The mother is appalled, in shock that a song like this could be played for young children. What do you think she then did? Wrote a letter? Called somebody? Well, what if I told you this woman was Tipper Gore, wife of then U.S. Senator Al Gore? Hearing Darling Nikki inspired Tipper Gore to start the Parents Music Resource Center, and their advocacy would eventually lead to the creation of the Parental Advisory label. That little black and white label on some records, That was Prince. The tour for Purple Rain was insane. Non-stop from November 84 to April 85. Once the tour was done, Prince was able to truly relax and enjoy the fruit of his labor with no new album out for several years.
Sorry, that's not true. I was just manifesting.
A follow-up to Purple Rain started its life before the movie even came out, and it was released 2 weeks after the Purple Rain tour. In April 1985, Prince went around the world in a day. Eat your heart out, Jules Verne. You should never judge a book by its cover, but the cover of this album kinda looks like these. Both of these records are famous for their influences in psychedelic rock, and Around the World in a Day has a pretty clear psychedelic aesthetic.
See, judging things on the surface is a good skill, actually. I have difficulty forming long-lasting relationships.
This record was inspired by the Paisley Underground movement, bands like Big Star and The Bangles. Not only did Prince name a song on this album after the movement, Paisley Park, he also started a whole-ass label called Paisley Park Records, a subsidiary of Warner. Geez, at that rate, Prince should have just made his own Paisley Park. Once again, Prince was the dominant recording entity on this record, the god over which all things flowed. The revolution was not around for this one. The biggest hit off this record was Raspberry Beret, a little tale about Prince meeting a girl at his job and having a quick fling in a barn. I didn't know about most of that though, because Prince said his boss's name was and that was a funny enough name to distract me for like 3 minutes. Also, shout out to Raspberry Beret's B-side, She's Always in My Hair. I wish it had made the album. Other highlights are the opening title track, the stardom condemning Pop Life, and the closer Temptation, which starts with lumbering guitars and drums and ends with spoken word, sultry sax, and spirited piano playing. I don't feel as immediately wowed by Around the World as I did with 1999 and Purple Rain, but I also don't think it needed to do that. Prince had gone above and beyond proving himself as a songwriter and performer at this point. He deserved to get a little loose, as a treat. Before Around the World in a Day came out, Prince said he planned to stop doing tours and music videos. On an unrelated note, Around the World in a Day stalled pretty hard on the charts upon release. But then Prince was like, Raspberry Beret music video? Then the album took off, though there was still no tour. In place of a tour, Prince made more music. August 1985 saw the release of the first and only album by The Family. Much like The Time, Prince wrote most of the songs and played all of the instruments. The one song that absolutely needs to be called out is Nothing Compares to You, which would later be made famous by Sinead O'Connor. Prince also contributed to Sheila E.'s second album, Romance 1600, that same month, which featured a big hit, A Love Bazaar. For his next project, Prince focused his gaze on the silver screen once more and sought to create an accompanying album. Not an outright soundtrack though, like Purple Rain. In March 1986, Prince released Parade. Now, I didn't just mention that album by The Family to get street cred with the Sinead heads out there.
You already have my family. What more do you want?
That album also featured orchestration work by Claire Fisher, and Claire returned to lend that same touch to Parade, especially on tracks like the instrumental Venus de Milo, the accordion-led Do You Lie, and the chromatic piano steps of Under the Cherry Moon.
I'll die in your arms under the cherry moon.
Opener Christopher Tracy's Parade happens to once again have a co-writing credit from Prince's dad, though there's no exact reason as to why. There's also a point where the lyrics don't rhyme. Turns out there's a reason for that. The song used to be called Wendy's Parade, and Christopher Tracy's piano was originally Little Girl Wendy's guitar. But if you want to dance, then there's plenty to work with too. Life Can Be So Nice, Another Lover Hole in Your Head, Girls and Boys, and Mountains! What an underrated piece of Prince's productions. But the creme de la creme of Parade when it comes to dance tracks is... I've never loved this one personally. It's not bad by any means, but for me, it's too minimal. I don't know what else it needs, and the guitar on the bridge helps a good deal, but I always feel like it's missing something. I blame this on Will Schuster. That said, it is very funny to sing along to. You don't have to be rich to be my fool. You don't have to be cool to run my world. But in my opinion, the best song on here is the closer, Sometimes It Snows in April.
Tracy died soon after a long-fought civil war.
This is another one of those Purple Rain type songs where I wish you could just hear it for yourself. It's a stunning piano ballad describing the experience of losing a close one in such perfect little summaries. One line is enough to tell a story unto itself. The result is an album that continues on the sonic trail paved by Around the World in a Day, but finds ways to converge with the sound of Purple Rain in 1999. Certainly helps that the Revolution are back on this album in a healthy capacity. A really great record. That happens to be paired with a movie? Parade was followed by Under the Cherry Moon, Prince's second film and his directorial debut. Instead of a glorified concert film, this one is a straightforward drama about a man who tries to woo a rich girl only to fall in love with her.
Thanks to this film, we know what it sounds like when Prince eats a grape.
Billy Eckstein, he ain't baby.
This was also the acting debut of Kristen Scott Thomas. For all of my Kristen Scott Thomas fans, YouTube says that's only 15% of you. I would love to get those numbers up. The scenes with Parade songs are great, though I think some of them don't translate well with this story. I'm thinking specifically of Sometimes It Snows in April. That one needed a lyrical reworking. Christopher Tracy died soon after a bullet. I'm not gonna say Under the Cherry Moon is amazing, but it is certainly an oddball piece of Prince's creative output. If you love Parade, then you'll like Cherry Moon solely for using Parade as its pseudo soundtrack. Parade itself was a success, though interestingly, European album sales passed the US for the first time. Kiss was a smash hit, being Prince's first song to top the Billboard Hot 100. Prince also got to have the number 2 slot as well around this time, thanks to his writing credit on the Bangles' Manic Monday. Under the Cherry Moon also did well if you consider that it did terribly, both commercially and critically. It ended up tying for the Razzies 1986 Worst Picture with Howard the Duck, the stupid Marvel movie with the animatronic duck. Prince and the Revolution toured Parade in 2 waves throughout Europe. The first was a series of hit-and-run shows that were announced a day or 2 before they played. The second was the proper Parade tour. After another successful run of shows with his band, Prince broke up his band. The reasons behind the Revolution's dissolution are hazy, but possible ones include tensions between Prince and the original members, tensions between the original members and the ones who were being added, tensions between Wendy, Prince, and Wendy's sister Susanna, whom Prince was dating. I guess it was some form of tension that had to be released. All of the members would go on to do side projects or start new bands. Wendy and Lisa specifically teamed up, released a few albums, and did some TV score work for shows like Heroes and Nurse Jackie. Prince would then form a new, no-name band that was active from 1987 to 1989. The lineup was Sheila E. on drums, Eric Leeds on sax, Levi Caesar Jr. on bass, Atlanta Bliss on trumpet, Bonnie Boyer on keys, dancer Kat Glover, and guitarist Miko Weaver. The only holdover from the Revolution was Dr. Fink. At this point, Prince was working on 2 albums, a Revolution-focused album called Dream Factory, and a solo offshoot that would have seen him adopt a higher-pitched persona named Camille. Now that the Revolution was done, he decided to combine the 2, add in some new songs, and make a triple album called Crystal Ball. But then, Warner Brothers did something new. They looked at the US performance of Parade and the financial bomb that was Cherry Moon and said no. They thought this kind of record would really only sell to critics and diehard fans. Thus, Prince decided to condense it down into a double album. In March 1987, Prince gave us Sign of the Times. Usually, a double album is the point where an artist fully submits to their own ego, which is not a bad thing. Many double albums are considered the best in history. However, and this is a compliment, I don't think there was a time when Prince wasn't drunk off his own ego. If anything, Sign of the Times is him just burrowing further in. No backing band in sight, though Wendy and Lisa did contribute some parts, along with percussion by Sheila E. This is once again Prince commanding over his aural kingdom, jamming songs of different genres together like a kid smashing toys. The title track is one of Prince's most politically depressing songs, but it saunters and simmers in such a captivating way. After the past few albums that opened the door for you by kicking it down, this is a nice change of pace. Housequake is a phenomenal piece of beef funk track with Prince singing as that Camille persona I mentioned. The Ballad of Dorothy Parker is Prince's minimalist inverted take on Joni Mitchell's Help Me. The whole song has this bleary underwater sound to it, which was actually a complete accident. According to Prince's longtime engineer, Susan Rogers, the track was recorded with a new console that was running on only half of its power supply. Prince ended up loving the sound though. Starfish and Coffee is a psych pop track based on a girl Wendy and Susanna knew named Cynthia Rose. The title is Cynthia's favorite meal, though it had to be changed from the original Starfish and PP.
Cowards.
Also, what is that reversed snare doing?
Maple syrup jam.
I don't like that very much. Feels weird in the cochlea. Slow Love is an incredible slow jam. I don't feel the need to say much more. It's just damn good. The second side begins with You Got the Look, a duet with Scottish singer Sheena Easton. For some reason though, she isn't credited. What does Prince have against the Scottish? If I Was Your Girlfriend is another Camille track, and it's really excellent. Sensual to an almost unnerving degree. I love how this synth comes in towards the end, gets higher and higher, and suddenly cuts out.
Try to imagine what it looks like.
I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man is an excellent pop track with a great breakdown. It reminds me of the Rolling Stones' Can't You Hear Me Knockin'. Fun side note, my first time hearing this song was the cover by the Wellington International Ukulele Orchestra. Hey, it's Brett from Flight of the Conchords. It's Gonna Be a Beautiful Night is great pure funk that interpolates a chant from The Wizard of Oz. What I've just described are my personal standout songs, and yet I'm sure someone is gonna go tell me I omitted their favorites, and I don't think I can help it. Like most double albums, Sign of the Times is a stitched together, messy sprawl of an album. But I don't think there's another artist out there who is as uniquely qualified to make that work as Prince. It's a great album. Sign of the Times was critically acclaimed to the high heavens, but sold under expectations. I guess Warner was right. It really was a record for critics and diehards. Like Parade though, it sold especially well in Europe, and so Prince toured the heck out of Europe with his nameless band. Warner Brothers wanted him to bring the tour to the US, but he said no because he wanted to record a new album. The compromise they came to was a concert film recorded from the last 2 nights of the tour with reshoots done at Paisley Park. Wait, have I mentioned Paisley Park yet? Okay, so in September 1987, Prince officially opened Paisley Park, his own headquarters, if you will, in Chanhassen, Minnesota. The complex included multiple recording studios and a soundstage. This is basically where Prince would record most of his future records, plus those of his associated acts. Okay, tangent out of the way. Much like the album, the concert film was praised, but didn't make much money. In September 1987, Michael Jackson released the song Bad. This is not a Prince song, but it was almost a duet with Prince. Here's why it wasn't. You may remember that the first line of Bad is, "Your blood is mine." According to Chris Tucker in an interview years later, Prince said, quote, "Who's going to sing that to who? Because you sure aren't singing that to me, and I sure ain't singing that to you." By this point, Prince's status in pop culture was still unquestionable, but his rise to stardom meant he had naturally drifted away from his original R&B audience. He had gone pop, so his next album was going to be a return to his roots, and hopefully a return to his sales heyday. This new record was the Black Album, called so because it was an effort to recapture Black audiences. And so, in December 1987, the Black Album was not released.
So the story is, whether it's because of a bad MDMA trip or his own sober volition, Prince had a spiritual awakening, realized the album was evil, and canceled the release at the last minute.
The official reason he gave later on was, quote, "I was very angry a lot of the time back then, and that was reflected in that album. I suddenly realized that we can die at any moment, and we'd be judged by the last thing we left behind. I didn't want that angry, bitter thing to be the last thing. I learned from that album, but I don't want to go back." Keep in mind, when I said it was canceled at the last minute, I meant the last minute. It was a week before it was supposed to come out. 500,000 copies had already been printed. Alas, the Black Album was gone, but not forgotten. Eventually, bootlegs would start making their way to market, and it became a very sought-after collector's item. Okay, so if there's no Black Album, What's next for Prince? Well, he went back to the studio, recorded a new album in 8 weeks, and released Lovesexy in May 1988. Now, we've all been there. We record an album, then realize it's a source of demonic evil, so we cancel its release and hastily record a replacement. And considering that background, this isn't a half-hearted effort. It's the first time a Prince album was designed to flow as one consistent piece. The original CD didn't even come with track markings. And the overall tone of the record is far more uplifting than Sign of the Times, almost gospel in its approach. The best song in my view is easily Alphabet Street, another addition to the catalog of Prince songs that gain their power by setting up a few excellent components and vibing out for 8 or so minutes. Shout out to the music video, which briefly shows the text, "Don't buy the Black Album, I'm sorry." I also enjoyed Glam Slam, the title track, I Wish You Heaven, and the opener.
Welcome to the new power generation.
New Power Generation. Huh, I wonder if we'll hear that again at some point. Overall, Lovesexy feels lesser to me, overshadowed by the circumstances of its development. It's certainly not bad though, and if nothing else, listen to Alphabet Street, please. It's clear that, in order to maintain relevancy, Prince needed to change things up. Maybe even find a new muse. And you know who he found? Alphabet Street was a hit in the US, but the album as a whole underperformed once again. Prince and his band went out on an 84-date tour, mostly focused on Europe. It got good reviews, but lost money because of ballooning production costs. During the tour, Prince got a call from director Tim Burton. Tim wanted to use past Prince songs for his upcoming Batman movie, but unbeknownst to Tim and possibly you, Prince was already a big Batman fan. The Batman theme was the first song he learned as a kid. So instead of just contributing old songs, Prince made a whole dang soundtrack album. The initial plan was for the album to be a full-length collab between Prince and Michael Jackson. Michael playing the hero and singing the ballads, and Prince embracing his inner Joker and doing the funkier tracks. But MJ was out on tour and signed to a different label than Prince, so alas. In June 1989, we got Batman!
And I need you. And I'm Batman!
Why is The Future such a good opener? Why is that? It's so good. Possibly his best opener since Let's Go Crazy. There's something so ominous about those clustered keys and the chorus lyrics. Electric Chair is also incredibly good. What? Those sick guitar chords, the vocal harmonies, that one part where he mentions a G flat major with an E in the bass and then plays it? Party Man is based on Prince's time on set with Jack Nicholson, mixing a beat reminiscent of The Time, horns, and the Camille vocal style. Ballads like The Arms of Orion and Scandalous are luxurious and smooth. The album's biggest hit, though, was its closer, Bat Dance, which is interesting? This might be a bit of a dig, but it's kind of a novelty song. It's mostly instrumental, broken up by dialogue from the film and some callbacks to other songs on the album. Even still, it's got such a unique energy to it, a multi-part suite with one section that kind of feels like an MF Doom beat.
Tripping off the beat kinda, dripping off the meat grinder, heat niner, pimping, stripping, fork, sleep minor.
I am shocked. I like the Batman soundtrack way more than I expected. I genuinely think this is up there with, I mean, not Purple Rain, but like Controversy or Around the World in a Day? Both the album and the film Batman were massive successes. Prince once again had a #1 album and a #1 hit with Bat Dance. The only downside is that, for the first time ever, Prince had to sign away the publishing rights to his songs. Prince didn't tour for Batman specifically, but he did embark on the Nude Tour exclusively in Europe from June to September 1990. As a response to the excess of the Lovesexy tour, this tour stripped back most of the set dressing to focus on the songs. He also had an updated band in tow. Miko Weaver on guitar, Levi Caesar Jr. on bass, Michael Bland on drums, Dr. Fink on keyboard, Rosie Gaines on keys and vocals, and 3 dancers known as the Game Boys, Tony M, Kirk Johnson, and Damon Dixon. Aside from a few extra members who would get added later, this would be the band Prince used for the next few years, though Prince wouldn't officially name them until 1991. Maybe it was the Bat Fever talking, but Prince wanted to do another movie. He had had a concept in mind since 1987 and was finally able to realize it. Warner Brothers was hesitant, but were game once Prince said it would be a direct sequel to Purple Rain and involve the time. And so, while he was still out on tour, we got the soundtrack to Graffiti Bridge in August 1990. The word of the day is uneven. Graffiti Bridge, as an album, is uneven. Why is that? Is it because it's the first Prince album to feature songs from other artists like Mavis Staples and George Clinton? Maybe, but like his other albums, Prince was behind the writing and producing for all of them. Maybe it's the fact that, like the concept for the film and soundtrack, most of the songs on here also go back a few or even several years. A few songs come from the Times' unreleased 1989 album. Mavis Staples' song Melody Cool dates back to 87. Weekend Funk with George Clinton goes back to 83. Tick Tick Bang and Can't Stop This Feeling I've Got, aka Prince's Footloose, go as far back as 1981 and 82. There's nothing wrong with using older songs at a later date, but Prince had grown a lot as a musician since the self-titled days. To have songs from that era sitting alongside stuff from the Sign of the Times days leads to an uneven album. If there's one highlight to be found, it's the lead single Thieves in the Temple. It has this singular haunting feel to it, like it's a darker B-side from Around the World in a Day. Plus, it is cool on a basic level to have Prince on record working with the likes of George Clinton and Mavis Staples. Also, there's that new Power Generation name again. Twice, actually. The album Graffiti Bridge is alright. The movie Graffiti Bridge, oh, I did not like this movie. I really did not. It came out a few months after the album. It takes place a few years after Purple Rain, with the Kid and Morris Day fighting over territory in the Minneapolis club world. Ingrid Chavez is an angel who is sent to resolve their conflict, and she frickin' dies. Tevin Campbell is also in this, and if that name doesn't ring a bell, look closer. Into your heart. Into my heart. Feel the connection. The shared language. Because if we listen to each other's hearts, it's just a weak movie, one that feels glued together by its soundtrack. It doesn't help that the songs being performed in Graffiti Bridge are from the album Graffiti Bridge, whereas the songs being performed in Purple Rain were from the album Purple Rain. If Graffiti Bridge's songs were on the level of Purple Rain's, then we would be talking, but they aren't, so we're not. Graffiti Bridge, the album, was a modest success, and Thieves in the Temple was a top 10 hit in the States. Graffiti Bridge, the movie, however, would not be. It only made $4.6 million off of a $7 million budget. Once the new tour wrapped, Miko and Dr. Fink left the band. Prince added Sonny T on bass, Tommy Barbarella on keys, and a full horn section called the Hornheads. And in October 1991, we got Diamonds and Pearls from Prince and the new Power Generation. That's right, all those references from before were the soft launch of his new band's name. They contribute a good amount to this new record too, and with their help, Prince made an album that sounded fresh, updated, in line with modern times, influenced by hip-hop, which by that point was a huge cultural force. Thunder is a great opener that also sounds exactly like Backstreet Boys. Look, I know this song predates anything the Backstreet Boys did, but I heard the Backstreet Boys first, so that's my reference point. I can't help but be a child of the 90s. It's my greatest sin. The title track is a great ballad, one of the best Prince ever made. Get Off mixes Prince with New Jack Swing. Strollin' is a nice casual jazz ditty. Money Don't Matter Tonight tackles greed with a remarkably smooth chorus. Willing and Able mixes blues and gospel to wonderful effect. And tracks like Cream and Daddy Pop are just updated versions of what Prince was already great at. That said, there is one thing I'm not a huge fan of. There are some instances on here where Prince will take a step back and let his band fully take over. Maybe with Rosie singing or Tony M rapping. Listen, it's not that I don't care about these other featured vocalists, it's just I don't care about these other featured vocalists. Prince himself sounds good when his style gets given that early 90s pop rap sheen, but put anybody else in his place and it wipes a lot of the personality away. Some of these songs sound like straight up jock jams. Let me use another example. We all love Crazy Frog, right? Now, whenever I talk about Crazy Frog, I always put up footage of Axel F. He did have other songs, but all of them make one fatal mistake. They all feature some random, no-name singer, and they all think I give a frog's ass about any of them more than Crazy Frog. Who is this guy singing Tricky? I don't care! Put the frog back where he belongs! I feel the same way with some NPG tracks. The band members are talented, but they are not who I've spent 12 albums getting to know and care about. If you want them front and center like this, give them their own albums. Even with its more dated decisions, Diamonds and Pearls is quite good. An updated take on a legend that makes him feel as relevant as he did before. Diamonds and Pearls was a genuine success. Not just the record itself, but the singles Get Off, Cream, Insatiable, the title track. It really felt like a commercial renaissance for the guy. You might think this would lead Prince to take it easy and coast off the reception. Nope, my bad, I was still just manifesting. Prince wanted to pump out music. By the time he was on the road for DNP, he already had tracks in mind for a follow-up. Warner, however, wanted him to slow down so they could actually promote his records. That divide seems like it would create issues between the two parties, but who cares? Because Prince signed a new 6-album contract with Warner Brothers in August 1992. A $100 million contract that gave him free license to do TV, film, and merch deals. By comparison, MJ and Madonna had deals at this time that were around 60 mil and all-inclusive. In October 1992, Prince released... YouTube is a great place because I can say that this is pronounced, but someone will still go down to the comments and say, no, you're wrong, it's actually pronounced. This new Prince album was the debut of this unpronounceable symbol. I'm not sure what it stands for, though it looks like a mix of the signs for male and female. The copyrighted name for it was Love Symbol Number 2, so in time, this record would come to be known as Love Symbol Album or Love Symbol. The first song is called My Name is Prince. Hell yeah, it is, dude. I'm so glad that won't change anytime soon. It carries over the hip-hop influence of DNP with this really aggressive vocal performance by Prince. This might be because it's a loose diss track aimed at MJ, who had declared himself the king of pop. Sexy MF has this dang smooth groove and these great horns, one of the best instrumentals of Prince's career. However, Prince raps on this one too, and to bring Brett back into this conversation, he kind of sounds like Flight of the Conchords.
I'm even with the blindfold, gagged and bound, I don't mind. See, this ain't about sex.
I have a vision, and all I can see is only you with the all of me.
You've got pounding drums on the Max, sick rhythm changes on Arrogance, densely layered vocals on 7, Love to the Nines, which sounds like Prince doing Seasons of Love from Rent, and I know that sounds like a dig, but it's not, a glossy ballad in And God Created Woman, and even something resembling a techno track on I Wanna Melt With You. I will also mention 3 Chains of Gold because, yeah, it's a song here, but it's also the name of a direct-to-VHS tie-in movie. And a comic, apparently. It happens to star Maite Garcia. She had become a backup dancer for Prince for the tail end of the DNP tour, and in 2 years' time, she and Prince would start dating. Love Symbol Album is a very good follow-up to DNP, one that adds a bit of dirt and debris to the sound. Compared to Diamonds and Pearls, Love Symbol was an underperformer. Prince blamed Warner for their poor marketing job, but I will say, it's hard to market an album when you can't actually say its name. Warner Brothers really wanted to finally put out a greatest hit series for Prince, but he didn't want to put that out. What did he want to put out? July 1993 saw the first solo album by the NPG, Gold, the 4th word in the title of the 9th song on the 2nd disc of Tupac's 1996 album All Eyes on Me. Warner didn't want to release it because they couldn't market it for the same reasons that I'm not saying the full name. As such, it was only sold through concert merch and Prince's phone hotline, 1-800-NEW-FUNK. It went out of print a long time ago, but it is on YouTube if you want to check it out. It was around this time when Prince was really getting frustrated with Warner Brothers. Them telling him how he could and couldn't release his music. Them laying out in his new contract that he could only release 1 album a year. Them owning his master recordings. He was fed up with how Warner Brothers was treating his music and his name. And so, on his 35th birthday in 1993, Prince changed his name to the Love Symbol. But the public would end up calling him the artist, or the artist formerly known as Prince. At the very least, Warner finally got their wish, and we got the hits and the B-sides in September 1993. Meanwhile, the artist formerly known as Prince, or TAFCAP, decided to get out of his contract with Warner by releasing a lot of music. He had 2 records in development that he wanted to release simultaneously. To his credit, he even tried to show Warner that he should be allowed to release music on his own terms under his own name. As an experiment with his own NPG records, he released the single The Most Beautiful Girl in the World in February 1994. And it was a hit! Number 3 in the US, number 1 in several other countries. It also got him sued and found guilty of plagiarism in Italian court, but still it was a hit. Warner didn't budge though, and even delayed the second record entirely. TAFKAP was on the offensive by this point in the battle. He spent 1994 trying to release music in new ways, like a series of dance shows called Glam Slam Ulysses, which then expanded into the Interactive Tour. There was even a TAFKAP-themed video game called Interactive. Based on gameplay footage, it looks like Myst if it took place inside TAFKAP's house. Watch out for the vase that contains a shape-shifting TAFKAP PNG. In August 1994, we got Come, with that nice little Prince 1958 to 1993 subtitle. Hi, it's me, Michael. I wanted to check in with you because we're pretty far into Prince's discography, and we're about to hit a turning point with how Prince viewed the records he was releasing. First, I have to spoil something. Prince does not have any colossal duds in his catalog. He doesn't have a Never Let Me Down, he doesn't have a Time, he doesn't have a Ratitude. This is a great thing, should you choose to get into his music. However, it poses a very particular problem for someone trying to talk about some of his records. Not because they defy explanation, but because they have already been explained. I could splice up things I've said about past Prince songs, change the song names, and still get my point across. Again, this is a great thing if you want to get into Prince. He has a remarkably consistent discography. I'm just giving you a heads up because we're gonna get to some albums where all I have to say is, it sounds like Prince, and if you like Prince, then you'll like this album. I bring this up because I know people sometimes go down and comment things like, I'm really surprised you didn't get into this more or that more. Maybe this time, we can put those on pause a little bit. He made 39 albums in less than 40 years, and that's only if you count the ones attributed to him or his symbol. I'm not gonna have a lot to say about every single one. Okay? Okay, rant's over. Let's go back to talking about Come. Considering all the hullabaloo, Come is alright. The overall package has this slinky, relaxed tone to it. You have tracks like lead single Let It Go and the opening title track that don't command you in, but rather lay the breadcrumbs out and let you follow where they lead. You have a song like Solo, which is just Prince and harp, and even when it hits harder like Pheromone or Race, the songs don't pound your head like My Name is Prince. Man, I feel bad. There's some guy out there whose favorite thing is Come, and I'm disappointing that guy so much right now. But it's the truth. It's a Prince album. It's fine. Come straight up flopped, in large part due to TAFKAP not promoting it in any real way. It was his worst performing record since the very early 80s. Okay, let's break down the math. TAFKAP wanted to get out of his record deal with Warner Brothers. The deal he signed in 1992 was for 6 albums. Love Symbol was not a part of that 6, so he was 1 album down. He could record 5 more, but I don't know, is there any way he could cheat? Put out a record super quickly that fulfilled his obligations to Warner Brothers? I mean, there was one he already made. In November 1994, the Black Album was finally officially released. Believe it or not, even though it helped him in the long run, TAFKAP still had to be paid $1 million by Warner Brothers to feel comfortable enough to release this. And after waiting so long, after the album gained such a looming reputation, I can confidently say that it's fine. It's classic Prince funk. Tracks like Lay Grind and super funky Califragisexy are exactly what you'd expect from late 80s Prince. Cindy C is to Prince what Dua Lipa was to Jack Harlow. Dead on It is a diss track towards tone-deaf rappers. I haven't mentioned this yet, but Prince was, at the time of the Black Album, not a fan of rap. Of course, he would soon after bring rappers into the fold and experiment more with the sound of the genre. It's just funny in hindsight. When Two Are in Love has the distinction of being the only song to be on both Lovesexy and the Black Album, the most interesting song on here is Bob George. Prince assumes the role of a guy who's been cheated on, and he suspects the guy who did it is Prince's manager. so he finds and shoots him and is then taken down by police.
That would have fit fine on Lovesexy.
It's one of the strangest songs ever made by Prince. It reminds me of when Eminem made a sequel to Stan, where Stan's little brother grew up and kidnapped Eminem as revenge. As a package, the Black Album is fine, but more importantly, it's amazing as a contractual obligation. The Black Album actually sold poorly. That's kind of surprising, right? People finally got the chance to hear this long-shelved album. Why would they not hop on it? Well, consider this. The Black Album was supposed to come out in 1988. This was 1994. That's 6 years of waiting. Anyone who was really interested in this record probably had a bootleg already. The album was pulled from shelves again in January 1995, and these days it's not even on streaming services. TAFKAP started on a new tour in early 1995 called The Ultimate Live Experience, the first tour of his that did not have a record attached. That second record TAFKAP made alongside Come was still held back by Warner. He considered himself a slave, which you could tell because he wrote slave on his face. Very Joker-esque. During this tour, he also released the new Power Generation's second album, Exodus. Like its predecessor, it's not anywhere on streaming services, but it is on YouTube. TAFKAP was able to score a small win though. In July 1995, he unleashed cassette tapes of the Versace Experience Prelude to Gold to the attendees of the Versace show during Paris Fashion Week. It also served as the soundtrack for the models running the walkway. The song Chatonnet Control even name drops those models.
Also, Rudy Kazooie sounds a lot like Banjo-Kazooie. That's all I got.
Maybe it was because of that similarity to a video game that didn't exist yet, but for whatever reason, Warner Brothers finally agreed to release the Gold Experience in September 1995. TAFKAP's first album as the unpronounceable USB Dongle Goblin. And once again, it's good. Definitely has more life in it than Come, though considering they were made at the same time, I don't know why that would be. But I'll take it. Tracks like P-Control, Endorphin Machine, Dolphin, and I Hate You show TAFKAP with a shot of something running through his veins, resulting in some great bangers and jams. I talked about its release strategy before, but The Most Beautiful Girl in the World is one of TAFKAP's finest ballads. Also, Gold is an excellent closer, shockingly so. The kind of glorious curtain call only TAFKAP could do. The Gold Experience is quite good. Easily up there with Love Symbol and Diamonds and Pearls. It's just a shame it took so long to come out. The Gold Experience was well received by critics, but it was yet another sales letdown. It's largely believed that by this point, the public feud with Warner Brothers was just overshadowing everything TAFKAP did. In late 1995, TAFKAP announced that, screw it, we're speedrunning this contract. The final 3 albums of his record deal would just be scraps from his vault.
By the way, that's not a figure of speech. Prince literally had a vault of music in the basement of Paisley Park, though how much of it was genuinely finished is debatable.
In February 1996, TAFKAP and Maite Garcia got married, and the next month he contributed a soundtrack to Spike Lee's film Girl 6. It's comprised of previously written songs for Prince, Vanity 6, The Family, and New Power Generation. TAFKAP actually let Warner use his name this time because Spike Lee was a good friend. 4 records down, 2 to go. The 5th contractually mandated release was Chaos and Disorder in July 1996. The inner sleeve of the album says, originally intended for private use only, this compilation serves as the last original material recorded by Love Symbol for Warner Brothers Records. May you live to see the dawn. This might lead you to believe that Chaos and Disorder is a throwaway project, because it is, but I also have a strange fondness for it, mainly because it's the most guitar-heavy album Prince ever made. For real, if the early NPG records were Prince trying on hip-hop, C&D is Prince trying on like 90s alt-rock. That leads to these really fascinating songs like Dinner with Dolores that, had they been given marketing love, probably could have been big hits. Hell, it was a single in the UK, and it just naturally became a top 40 hit. If you want bangers, there's stuff like the title track and Xana Lee. If you want some hip-hop beats thrown in, there's Dig You Better Dead and I Rock Therefore I Am. And if you want some jazz, there's the back-to-back pair of Into the Light and I Will. It's a good record. Not incredible, it does feel a little patched together, because again, it was, but it is underrated in TAFKAP's catalog. Once again, TAFKAP did no promotional work for Chaos and Disorder, and thus it sold even worse than Gold. But so what? One more album to go, right?
Well, actually, around the time he submitted Gold Experience, he also submitted a collection of vault tracks as the sixth album. Though because of the flood of Prince releases, Warner Brothers decided to hold off on putting it out for a few more years.
He did it! TAFKAP was freed of his contract with Warner Brothers, and later in 1996, he celebrated by signing another contract. In October 1996, TAFKAP signed a joint deal between NPG Records and EMI Capital, the main selling point of which was that TAFKAP got full reign over his master recordings and how they were released. And we didn't have to wait long for new recordings. Turns out Prince had been stockpiling music to keep it away from Warner Brothers. And in November 1996, we were treated to TAFKAP's Emancipation.
I hope you all are enjoying your emancipation. I know I am.
I'll say this first. He sounds happy. TAFKAP sounds free and alive. Sure, some of that has to be his newfound freedom, but he'd also just gotten married. A lot of the songs on here are written about Maite Garcia, like Let's Have a Baby.
I thought he wrote that for his accountant.
And Friend, Lover, Sister, Mother/Wife. Jam of the Year is a nice chilled out introduction to the emancipated TAFKAP. That said, it does something that's a pet peeve to me. It tells you it's the Jam of the Year instead of simply letting it be. Dude, if it was actually the Jam of the Year, you wouldn't have to say it. The Human Body is shocking because it's a full-on dance track. A part of me wishes TAFKAP made an album like this, but then I'd have even more albums to cover, so I take that back. Betcha by Golly Wow is a nice ballad with a funny title. Imagine if the lead single for his next album was Gosh G. Willikers Sufferin' Succotash. It also happens to be a cover of the Stylistics. Emancipation is the first TAFKAP album to have covers. Bonnie Raitt's I Can't Make You Love Me, Joan Osborne's One of Us, and the Delphonics' La La Means I Love You. Though of course they were all retitled to fit TAFKAP's brand. But despite these songs and other bright spots like Dreamin' About You and My Computer, there's one thing that holds this album back for me. Its length. 180 minutes.
You couldn't make it 181 minutes, you assholes?
Look, we're far enough into this where I feel like I can be honest with you. I am inclined to dislike long albums. A 40-minute 10-track album is a transmission frequency for God's grace. Your record goes past an hour, you better have a damn good reason for it. And of course there are exceptions. Many of my favorite albums ever are over an hour, but for me personally, an hour plus runtime is a difficult hurdle for me to get over. So imagine my joy when I saw Emancipation's 3-hour runtime. Your first listen of Emancipation is less an enjoyable activity and more an attentive search for the stuff worth spinning again. Future listens can then be spent listening to the good stuff. There's a really good 10 to 12 track album somewhere within Emancipation. If you find it, God bless you.
Hi, it's me, Michael Snare, interjecting off-the-cuff variant, stepping in to do what I do best, which is to interject in an off-the-cuff manner. This deep discog dive has taken a while. The last one I did was in April, and it is now July. I believe Prince warrants the amount of time taken, just considering the size of his discography and also who he was as a character and a person. But still, I feel bad that this one has taken so long to come out. So I wanted to do something a little bit extra as a gift in case any of you are interested, and that's where my good friends at Qobuz come into play. I don't think this counts as a sponsorship because they have not paid me to talk about them, which is also why you didn't see that includes paid promotion tab at the start of the video. If merely mentioning a product or service counts as a sponsorship, then product or service mentioned, I guess. But I happen to meet them through my work. I like what they do, they like what I do, and I think you will like what they do too. Qobuz is a streaming service not unlike the one you might currently be subscribed to. The biggest plus about it is that you get to stream all of the music on there in CD quality or even high-res studio quality audio. I've been using it for the past few weeks, and it's insane how often I'll pull up a record that I feel like I know all of the little quirks and intricacies of from a mix perspective, but then I'll listen on Qobuz and find new things to appreciate. It's really given me a newfound love for some records that I thought I knew inside and out. Plus, you've got blurbs about all the records that talk about, you know, their place in the artist's history. You've got credits for each song. And if you're like me and have become increasingly concerned about big media conglomerates allowing us to rent their media, but revoking that access without even the courtesy of a heads up, you can also buy and download records from Qobuz so that you have them on your hard drive. And if I may throw one ding at Qobuz just to prove that this isn't a sponsorship, Eiffel 65 is not on there. I mean, I think their profile is, but like Europop isn't on there. Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Die isn't on there. all I want to do is listen to Zerodl at 24-bit 192 kilohertz. Is that so much to ask? If you go to the link in the description, you can sign up for 2 free months of Qobuz. Plus, I talked with them and we worked something out so that one lucky person who signs up will get 6 free months of Qobuz instead of just 2. And if you're looking for something to listen to once you've signed up for Qobuz, I've got the full playlist for this Prince Deep Discog Dive loaded into Qobuz. So of course I've got it into Spotify and Apple Music as well if you just want to check it out there. Thank you for indulging me as I mention a product or service. I hope you enjoy Qobuz if you do sign up. Now let's get back to whatever album I'm talking about next.
Emancipation sold remarkably well. It went on to be the 4th best-selling triple album in US history. Speaking of the US, for the first time in years, the album sold more in the US than Europe.
That said, the period surrounding the album's release was difficult for other reasons. A few weeks before Emancipation came out, TAFKAP and Mayte welcomed their first child into the world. But within a week, that child passed away due to a severe case of Pfeiffer syndrome. The fact that either of them did anything after that genuine tragedy is frankly commendable.
TAFKAP went out on the Jam of the Year tour from January 1997 to December 1998. 2 straight years of touring. Apparently this was done so that TAFKAP could run out the clock on Warner's publishing contract. He also brought along the new Power Generation, but in name only. Back in 1996, he fired everybody.
His backing band for the next few years is going to change a bunch, so I'm not going to give them as much attention as I did the Revolution or the OG NPG.
On a more personal level, TAFKAP and Mayte tried to have another child, but that ended tragically as well. Possibly due to that, as well as meeting Sly and the Family Stone bassist and Drake's uncle, Larry Graham, in 1997, TAFKAP started a process of spiritual rebirth that would result in him becoming a Jehovah's Witness. I will touch on that more when it becomes relevant. On the music side though, TAFKAP was as active as ever. Now a fully independent artist, he sought out new ways of releasing his music. And at the time, nothing was newer than the internet. In spring 1997, he started 1-800-NEW-FUNK as a portal for TAFKAP updates and new music. In fact, the site began accepting pre-orders for a new collection of music called Crystal Ball. In January 1998, Crystal Ball began shipping to those who pre-ordered, with a retail release following in March. What is this PS1 graphics ass cover I see before me? Is this the Neverhood Chronicles? Does this bear a non-0% resemblance to the title screen of the Neverhood Chronicles?
Now, for those of you chomping at the bit to say it, yes, this album does share the name of one of the records that would eventually turn into Sign of the Times.
However, it is not that album. This album is a compilation of B-sides and rarities and previously bootlegged material. I mean this with nothing but kindness and love in my heart. I don't know why this is considered a mainline Prince album. Most of these songs date back to either 1985, 1986, or 1992, 1993. Nothing from the Revolution days. There was supposed to be a similar album with just Revolution songs, but that never saw the light of day. The opening title track is a 10-minute sprawl, but it's a nice sprawl with some lovely strings in the back half. Interactive is here, the song from the TAFKAP video game. An Honest Man comes from the Under the Cherry Moon film. Good Love comes from the Camille album. I'm sure there are other highlights on here, but I am still recovering from the 3-hour deluge that was Emancipation, and Crystal Ball is nearly as long. However, there is one song I can distinctly remember, because it is the only Prince or TAFKAP song that I actually flat out dislike. Chlorine Bacon Skin. Chlorine Bacon Skin is a very minimal track. It starts out with tight drums, bass, and vocals, and admittedly, it grooves pretty hard. When I first heard it, I was like, this is a neat little 3-minute interlude track. It's the 3rd longest song TAFKAP ever made. Actually, wait, that's not true. The longest song is technically a New Power Generation song, and the 2nd longest is an extended cut of a song from Around the World in a Day. So this is the longest standalone song attributed to either Prince or TAFKAP. It wears out its welcome so quickly, I hate it by the end.
Crystal Ball is for Prince obsessives. There's nothing more to say. At the very least, it was a bountiful gift for those who got its 5-disc package. Wait,
Crystal Ball is only 3 discs. So what's the 4th disc? As a silly little goofy move, within the box set for TAFKAP's 20th album is his 21st, The Truth. This one was supposed to come out via EMI, but then EMI died, so instead it got packaged in with Crystal Ball. And it is an acoustic stripped back album that is mostly just TAFKAP and guitar.
Oh. That's great.
This is exactly what I needed. God bless TAFKAP, but the music he had made for the past decade had all fallen under the same sound. It was getting repetitive. This is the first time we've seen such a radical change in instrumentation. I welcome this wholeheartedly. Songs like the title track, Don't Play Me, Comeback, Third Eye, they show TAFKAP at his most bare. They show that without all the showmanship, he was just a great songwriter. When The Truth is just TAFKAP, it's often great. However, it's when more elements are introduced where the record loses me. Dion is a dedication to the lead singer of Arrested Development, and it brings in these fake-sounding strings.
If you have no plans to please me.
That's not a huge deal though, in comparison to these synth chords that just stab their way in. There's also Animal Kingdom, which is fine up until the dolphins come in because the sound effect used is the exact same one from SpongeBob. But even with its occasional awkwardness, I like The Truth. Please, more of this. So wait, if The Truth was the 4th disc on Crystal Ball, what was the 5th? Damn it! The 5th disc was Kama Sutra, which is not technically a TAFKAP album, it's an NPG Orchestra album, so I'm not going to cover it. I'm going to move on because Jesus Christ, this video is already an hour long and we're just barely halfway through. Crystal Ball would have been a sales flop by a label standards, but considering TAFKAP received most of the sales revenue and didn't have to market it that much, the record brought in about $11 million. While the album was a success in that sense, it didn't mean the rollout was. The immense demand for the album meant pre-orders were still being fulfilled into the spring of 1998. In June 1998, we got the final New Power Generation album through BMG, New Power Soul. TAFKAP is on the cover holding this microphone gun, and I hate to be that guy, but a microphone takes in sound. It doesn't push it out, so this doesn't really make... If it looked like a speaker, then that... In December 1998, TAFKAP held a press conference in Spain to announce his intent to annul his marriage to Maite. What kind of guy do you have to be to announce a breakup through a press conference? Hello everyone, I have some important news to share. The Brita in the fridge is empty. And so we arrive in 1999. I can't believe they named a year after a Prince song. Warner Brothers decided to capitalize on renewed interest in 1999 by re-releasing it, and naturally, TAFKAP followed suit by re-recording it as 1999 The New Master. This release led him to consider re-recording his entire Warner Brothers catalog, but he stopped after Soft and Wet. It was also this year when TAFKAP signed a new deal with Arista Records. He was hesitant to get back with a label, but he was convinced by Clive Davis, who had revitalized the career of one of TAFKAP's heroes, Carlos Santana. Soon after signing, he announced a new album. 1999 would be the year of TAFKAP. There was no better year to put out material by him, whether it was a new record or a collection of vault tracks given to a label as the last piece of a record deal. In August 1999, mere months before TAFKAP's first album on Arista, Warner Brothers released The Vault, Old Friends for Sale. The final album to fulfill that 1992 contract and the first album in ages credited to Prince. So what we've got here is some light jazz. It's like Prince and a small band set up in a nice cafe and just played for the sake of playing. It's nice. Songs like The Rest of My Life, 5 Women, the title track, are nice. She Spoke to Me is fine, but what gets me every time is the way Prince says baby at the end.
Are we taking the scene? Yeah, baby.
Video Game Donkey, is that you?
Baby.
It's quaint, it's lovely, it's a breeze of an album, not crucial to anyone getting into Prince, and if he had his way, you probably wouldn't have heard it. The Vault got lukewarm critical reviews, underwhelming sales, and no tour. People forgot about it. Let's move on to the record that actually matters here. In November 1999, we got Rave Unto The Joy Fantastic. TAFKAP's return to a major label pulled out all the stops. He welcomed in guests like Gwen Stefani, Sheryl Crow, Chuck D, Eve, Annie DeFranco. He did more interviews while promoting this record than at any other point in his life. He performed on TRL, but most shocking of all, he announced that he would be reuniting with an old producer. Himself. One of the producers on Rave is Prince. Rave had all the makings of a bona fide return to form for TAFKAP. Screw that, it was a return for Prince. Okay, it's not bad by any means. I said before that TAFKAP doesn't have a terrible album, and Rave Unto is not terrible. I just don't care. Yeah, I just don't care. I could throw up all the disclaimers so as not to offend any fans of this album, but maybe we can just agree that we are separate beings with our own preferences. Maybe. Its title track is alright. It also predates the Batman soundtrack. The two collabs from Gwen Stefani and Annie DeFranco work well. In fact, that reminds me, none of the guest stars were paid in cash, but TAFKAP offered to do guest spots on their songs. Gwen and Annie were the only ones to take him up on that offer. The cover of Sheryl Crow's Every Day is a Winding Road is good, in large part because Sheryl Crow's Every Day is a Winding Road is good. Undisputed has TAFKAP whip out the autotune right at the end. Cool that he's using new tech. Pretty Man is an outright homage to James Brown, and it happens to feature Brown's saxophonist, Maceo Parker. So yeah, there are highlights just like any Prince or TAFKAP album. If you choose to listen to it, you won't dislike it. I just think there are plenty of albums to check out before this. Despite the work TAFKAP put in, Rave Unto did not meet sales expectations. And its only single, The Greatest Romance Ever Sold, didn't even crack the top 40. TAFKAP blamed it on Arista, and the experience soured him on labels again for a good while. The month after Rave Unto, we got a pay-per-view special called Rave Unto the Year 2000.
Staying home New Year's Eve? Good.
It's a good special, strong set list with cameos from Rosie Gaines, Morris Day, Lenny Kravitz, members of Sly and the Family Stone. TAFKAP didn't tour for Rave Unto, instead planning to do another hit and run tour starting in November 2000. However, two big changes came beforehand. First was the official dissolution of his marriage to Maite. The second was also announced at a press conference. TAFKAP would finally go back to being addressed as Prince. Oh, thank Christ I don't have to call him TAFKAP again. On the Hit and Run tour, the artist I'm so happy to call Prince again largely focused on songs from his Warner Brothers days. A greatest hits tour, if you will. He did plan on releasing an album called High in August, but he instead decided to release its tracks through his new site, the NPG Music Club. This is how Prince would release the next few albums, directly to fans without any middlemen. This was genuinely a pioneering step in online music distribution. In April 2001, members of the NPG Music Club got a remix album called Rave Into the Joy Fantastic. I've heard a lot of people say this might actually be better than Rave Unto. I might feel that way as well if I cared about the original album's songs, but I don't. So, it was also in 2001 that Prince officially became a Jehovah's Witness, and he committed to the faith seriously. In fact, one of the greatest Prince stories I've ever heard is that he and Larry Graham used to go door to door preaching the word. This is the same guy who was responsible for the parental advisory label. It was his new faith, as well as his divorce, that influenced his next album. In October 2001, NPG Music Club members received The Rainbow Children as one continuous track, with a retail release the following month. The Rainbow Children is a light concept album, an equal mix of Jehovah's Witness lore dumping and publicly processing both his divorce and his new relationship with Manuela Testolini. Prince was not a stranger to concept albums by this point, but it is so fascinating to see him fully commit to his new faith on record after what had been a very difficult couple of years. To that end, Prince throws himself into this album, and the result is kinda great, primarily because of its sound. This is a hard pivot into jazz, live drums, horns, and a bunch of dudes just noodling around. The 10-minute title track courts you in gently, but eventually builds to this full band crescendo. The sax goes crazy, and the band keeps moving up by half steps. The live band feel adds so much to Prince's arrangements, giving longer songs like Family Name and The Everlasting Now the space to just spread out. And for the casual guy, you got solid ditties like The Work Part 1, 1 + 1 + 1 is 3, and Everywhere. Plus, this album sounds excellent. The mixing and production is an accomplishment in and of itself. This might be the most well-mixed album in all of Prince's catalog. The Rainbow Children is a weird album. I can't guarantee you will like it, but if you happen to tune into its wavelength, I think you'll be in for a good time. The Rainbow Children got Prince his best reviews in a good while, but sales were meager. That didn't matter though. Prince was entering a new era. He wasn't focused on the metrics, he was focused on the music. Prince's next album was recorded shortly after the Rainbow Children sessions, and it would be his first album released solely through the NPG Music Club. In May 2002, we got One Nite Alone with him. The best way to describe this one is the truth if, instead of guitar, Prince was on piano. The opening title track is excellent. Scratch that, it's phenomenal. It's one of my favorite opening tracks by Prince. It encapsulates why this album works so well. It's still Prince singing about Prince things, but the context gives his words and melodies new weight. You're Gonna See Me, Objects in the Mirror, and Have a Heart are just as much proof of this. The two songs that usually get the most attention are A Case of You, a great Joni Mitchell cover that Prince had done in live sets for years, and Avalanche because Prince calls Abraham Lincoln a racist. And like Rainbow Children, this record sounds gorgeous. Prince had entered his audiophile era, and I am all here for it. Between One Nite Alone and Rainbow Children, this is what I've been wanting. A change in overall sound and aesthetic that retains the same musicianship of Prince's best records. I actually remember this album. I can name you songs from it. What a feeling. I can't tell you if One Nite Alone sold well, as it did not chart since it was not officially released. Plus, there were no singles. There's no data on it. I could have been the very first person to listen to it, who knows? What I can tell you is that Prince's following One Nite Alone tour was a success. Prince went out on the road with some great session players, and the reviews from those shows were quite good. Plus, if you were an NPG Music Club member, not only could you get exclusive tickets, but you could even go early to soundcheck and possibly hang with Prince. That's cool! This tour would be immortalized on Prince's first ever live album, One Nite Alone. Live! In December 2002. The month after, Prince released yet another album exclusively through the NPG Music Club, Xpectation, on New Year's Day 2003. This cover looks like a textbook for a terrible gen ed. This is the first fully instrumental album by Prince. It follows in Rainbow Children's footsteps as another record of dudes noodling around. You might think I'd like that, but remember what I said way back with Diamonds and Pearls? I start losing interest if I don't hear Prince. Allow me to be more specific. When I don't hear Prince's voice. Xpectation is a perfectly fine collection of smooth jazz instrumentals, but I am not going to pretend like it sticks with me for long. The only two songs I mentioned in my notes are Exemplify, because it sounds like Voodoo Vince, and Expand because it has this abrasive sax part that's very present in the mix. Really cool effect. I suppose it's good proof of Prince's arranging skills, especially without lyrics or a vocal melody, but if it's arranging chops you want, then there is plenty of Prince to check out before this. The month after Xpectation dropped, Prince and some dudes did even more noodling around in the studio. The noodling never ends. Before that record released, NPG members got C-Note, a live album with tracks Prince and his band recorded during sound checks of the One Nite Alone tour. And in May of 2003, Prince dropped his second fully instrumental album, News. The hook this time is that there's 4 songs, each named after a direction, and each one exactly 14 minutes in length. Listen, I'm just gonna say it because nobody else will. Prince ripped off King Gizzard. I'm gonna be real, I got nothing. I really don't. Check out North. I don't know. I'm struggling to come up with a different conclusion from Xpectation. Do you like the idea of Prince and co noodling? Then check it out. Otherwise, low priority. News would end up being the lowest selling Prince album of all time. but it was also kinda crucial to what's gonna happen to Prince this decade. So news got Prince a Grammy nomination, his first since 1995. A few months later, in February 2004, Prince got to kick off the Grammys with this up-and-coming singer named Beyoncé. They did a good job, and it got eyes on both of them. The next month, in March, Prince was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a much-deserved accolade. He even got to join in on this big group performance of While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Yeah, he's just standing there in the background doing his thing. Out of nowhere, Prince just kinda busts out this incredible guitar solo. Both events primed the public to remember Prince, which was good because he was about to release a new record via a one-album deal with Columbia. Prince re-entered the public consciousness with Musicology, first through the NPG Music Club in March 2004, with a wider release in April. The best thing I can say about this one is that it does feel like the good old days. The days of yesteryear, when men were chaps and chaps were assless. The opening title track is a nice introduction. I also like how it calls back to Kiss and Little Red Corvette at the end.
Hips and lips, chips and whips.
Illusion, Coma, Pimp, and Circumstance kinda sounds like his take on a Neptune's beat. I know I said before that I didn't want to wish for more Prince albums, but to get like a one-off Prince and Neptune's collab, that would have been cool. A Million Days is a great rock banger. Call My Name is a great slow jam. If I Was the Man in Your Life has sick guitar work and horns, but it really shines with a nice jazzy outro that blends well into On the Couch. The only song I flat out did not feel is Dear Mr. Man, though the YouTube comment section seems to disagree with me. I never understood why Prince did not come out with this song. He did though? People say Musicology is a return to form, and I agree. It's a return to form in the most literal sense though. It is Prince returning to the style he was known for. I don't think it's incredible, but it is nice to hear Prince slide back into the style he had pioneered. For all intents and purposes, Musicology brought Prince right back into the mainstream. It would end up being his most successful album of the 2000s. It also kicked off the Musicology tour, which ran from late March to September 2004. One neat thing about buying a ticket to that tour was that you would also get a copy of Musicology included. But wait, how could I forget? 2 days after Musicology's NPG release, we got two compilations of songs previously released through the NPG Music Club, The Chocolate Invasion and The Slaughterhouse. Why do both of these women look like they're about to sell me ringtones? These records mostly cover songs released through the club from 2001 to 2002. The initial plan was to put out a 7-disc set with all of the NPG exclusive tracks, but that sadly did not happen. It really was sad. Don't pay attention to the fact that I'm smiling right now. I'm just so broken up about it. Some songs got reworked or rearranged. The only entirely new song was The Dance, and that would eventually get reworked on another album. Also, remember that shelved album called High? A good chunk of its planned songs are on The Chocolate Invasion. The Slaughterhouse, meanwhile, focuses more on Prince's disdain for the music business. Do I have to say more about these? This is the crystal ball situation again. Why are these considered mainline studio releases? The human experience is vast enough that these are probably someone's favorite Prince albums, and to that person, I apologize. Whoever made the triplet delay so loud on When I Lay My Hands on You needs to be brought before a tribunal. Yeah, enough of these two. Like I said, Musicology was his most successful album since Diamonds and Pearls. After the tour was done, Prince set up shop in LA, where he would be for the next few years. He rented the former house of Elizabeth Taylor, 3121 Antelope Road. For the next year, that's where he would host parties and work on a new record. This one would be released under a one-album deal with Universal. Prince was getting into these one-album deals. Given his past with record labels, this was a good plan for all parties involved. On the 21st day of March 2006, we got the 31st Prince album, 3121. 3121 mostly follows in Musicology's approach of, if Prince ain't broke, don't fix him. But there are moments where he deviates and experiments. Te Amo Corazon, as the title implies, is a comfy bossa nova ballad, but it also has Claire Fisher returning to do some orchestration work. Incense and Candles features verses sung in auto-tune. It also has Tamar Davis, Prince's protege at the time. The title track is fine, but it eventually brings in these synth horns that give me flashbacks to The Truth, not a fan. Of course, there's also plenty of the usual Prince, like on Black Sweat, Fury. Most crucially though is the closer, Get on the Boat. Sheila E., Michael Bland, and Sonny T return with new players Joshua and CeCe Dunham, who would act as Prince's rhythm section for a few years. Overall, I think I enjoyed 3121 a little bit more than Musicology. This is a real return to form. 3121 was another success for Prince. It didn't generate any big hits, but it was his first album to debut at #1 on the top 200. Around the same time as 3121, Warner Brothers planned to release a new best of compilation called Ultimate, but Prince filed an injunction to prevent its existence. It would eventually come out later in the year. In July 2006, the NPG Music Club received the Webby Award for Best Celebrity Website, an honor Prince celebrated by closing it down with basically no advance warning. Seriously, the only hint that it was ending was the fact that it stopped accepting new members a week before. The reason seemed to be Prince's desire to focus on other projects. However, it's worth noting around this time, the British magazine Nature Publishing Group had filed a trademark notice, so it's possible Prince saw that and it was just like, no, I don't need it, dump it. Early 2007 saw even more acclaim for Prince. In January, he won a Golden Globe for a song he contributed to the film Happy Feet. What's especially funny about this is Happy Feet was released by Warner Brothers, so this song was the first new material he had given them since Girl 6. And the next month, he performed the Super Bowl halftime show. There's a good chance you already know about this show because it's considered one of, if not the, best halftime show ever. The key moment is when Prince, drenched from the torrential downpour, obliterates Purple Rain. The stuff of legends right here. In July 2007, Prince gave birth to Planet Earth. Which means this year, Planet Earth will be 16 years old. Congratulations! Listen, when Prince puts out a cover like this, he's praised, but when Pitbull does it, he's made fun of? What is the world coming to? Okay, this one is fine. Out of the 3 records released since Musicology, this is my least favorite. Doesn't mean it's bad though. I really like the title track and how it builds across 6 minutes. I like the smooth jazz on Somewhere Here on Earth. I like the slow jammery of Future Baby Mama. The One You Wanna See and All the Midnights in the World both feature Wendy Melvoin. It's nice to see her back on a Prince album. The rest is alright. If you listen to it, you're not gonna hate any of it. If anything though, this album is more noteworthy for how it was released. The week before its proper release, the album came packaged with the July 15th edition of UK newspaper The Mail on Sunday. Planet Earth was then released properly a week later through Columbia. Why? Prince said that he was, quote, spreading my music and my word to as many people as possible. It's direct marketing, which proves I don't have to be in the speculation business of the record industry, which is going through tumultuous times right now. UK record stores were not happy, and Columbia didn't even distribute the album in the UK aside from the newspaper run. But did it work? Kinda. Prince kicked off the Earth Tour to promote Planet Earth. Ironically, he only played the UK, and as it turned out, the press stunt worked, as he was able to sell out 21 shows at the O2 Arena. So what's a man to do after he sells out the O2 for 21 nights in a row? I don't know. Sue the internet? In September 2007, Prince threatened to sue YouTube, eBay, and the Pirate Bay as they, quote, appeared to choose not to filter out the unauthorized music and film, which is core to their business success. In theory, this was an attempt to prevent piracy of Prince's music. In practice, well... This is a good time to mention that, as a whole, Prince's relationship with the internet was strange. On one hand, he was one of, if not the first major artist to embrace the internet as a distribution tool. Say what you will about the quality of the tracks from the NPG Music Club, but the core of it was revolutionary. He should be celebrated for that. On the other hand though, if you so much as sneezed in the same key as Raspberry Beret and uploaded it to YouTube, you were about to be his duet partner on Michael Jackson's Bad, because your butt would be his. Prince was extremely protective of his music online. In fact, there's 2 stories from this year that demonstrate this. First, in February 2007, Prince and Universal had a video taken down off YouTube for copyright violation. The video in question was 29 seconds of a baby dancing to Let's Go Crazy. Said takedown would snowball into a lawsuit between Universal and the baby's mom that wouldn't be settled until 2018. Second, in November 2007, fans formed Prince Fans United as a defense against Prince sending cease and desists over anything related to him posted online. Album covers, lyrics, photographs, etc. This got some decent attention from news outlets to the point where Prince responded with a diss track. Prince sent a song called P-Funk to Prince Fans United. Despite the title, PFU isn't directly named in the song, it's more just Prince singing about how he's not taking crap from anybody. It's funny too because this song is actually really good. It would later be re-released with the title Funk. The internet fun didn't end in 2007. The next year in March, Prince played Coachella and he even covered Radiohead's Creep. Some clips of it went up on YouTube, they were also taken down, but then Radiohead 15 stepped in to allow those videos to exist on YouTube. Their statement was, quote, "It's our song, let people hear it." Even though he had waged a battle against the internet, Prince still decided to use it to distribute his next album. His next albums. In early 2009, Prince launched Lotusflow3r.com, an updated take on the NPG Club website that would offer exclusive media from Prince and other artists. And in late March 2009, Prince released a collection of 3 albums, all on the same day, with a wider release soon after, exclusively through Target. Oh boy, a triple album, just like Crystal Ball, my favorite Prince album of all time. Hey, at the very least, this is new, original material, so let's see what we've got. The first album was Lotusflow3r. This one is the pop rock live record of the bunch, with more organic production. Tracks like Boom, Crimson and Clover, Love Like Jazz, Dreamer, they're all smooth, psychedelic treats, but once again, if you like Prince, you'll like this. My brain does not have the ability to say any more about it. The second was MPLSound, the synth-heavy funk cousin of Lotusflow3r. You're Gonna See Me from One Nite Alone gets a new sonic coat of paint. Chocolate Box has a verse from Q-Tip. I Wish It Was on a More Memorable Song. Old School Company is a good retro funk throwback. That's all I got for this one too. Same deal as Lotus. If you like Prince, you'll like this. The third album was... Oh, you son of a bitch! The third album isn't a Prince album. It's the debut album by Bria Valente, another one of Prince's proteges and his girlfriend at the time. No! I'm not talking about it. I don't care. Prince tried to smuggle this in. I'm so close to the end. I'm not doing this. Move on to the next album, please. None of the songs off Lotus MPLSound made a huge splash, but the package did sell well, likely because the whole thing was only $12. Prince didn't tour for these records either. For Prince's next album, he returned to the release strategy of Planet Earth. Released in July 2010 was included with newspapers in the UK, Ireland, Germany, Belgium, and France. Prince stated that this was, quote, the best way to go. No charts, no internet piracy, and no stress. It was also a return in another sense. This was the first album in a while to be recorded entirely at Paisley Park. Prince named the album 2010 because, quote, I just think it's a year that really matters. Hell yeah, it was, dude. That's the year Salt came out. I have virtually nothing else to say. Do you like Prince? Have you enjoyed any of his music in the past? Then you won't hate 2010. Okay, fine, a few notes. The highlights for me were Future Soul Song, Sticky Like Glue, and Walk in Sand. They are highlights for the same reason that any other Prince song could be a highlight. Also, Compassion sounds like the Big Blue theme from F-Zero.
Get it on.
Wait. Show that title card again. Dolores, zoom and enhance on that release year. Oh my god. That's a break of 4 years. That's the longest break between Prince albums ever. By which I mean, It's a normal break for an artist to take.
Prince stated during a brief tour for 2010 that he was going on recording rehab, citing the rise of internet piracy as the main reason. The next 4 years would see Prince focus on live music, with multiple legs of the Welcome To tour. I love how 3 of these legs are named for the countries they happened in, and then the European leg is Welcome to America, Euro Tour. Aside from touring, something very big happened in August 2013. Prince joined Twitter. A hug can say the things you don't have the words for. 1,000 X's and O's. Multiple choice. A, scavenger. B, vulture. C, tout. D, all of the above. You all are officially adopted. What are you doing on the 21st of this month? What is pho? Using only the sound of his voice and a piano, Prince causes a sensation by levitating a woman 4 feet in the air! In February 2014, Prince guest starred on his favorite show at the time, New Girl.
And I'm just worried I'm gonna lose him.
That's stupid.
You're stupid.
I forgive you.
Oh my God, thank God.
Shortly after the episode, Prince went on a new tour with a brand new band. A 3-piece called Third Eye Blind? Oh, Third Eye Girl. That's still cool though. Consisting of bassist Ida Christine Nielsen, guitarist Donna Grantis, and drummer Hannah Welton. This band needed a record deal, and in April 2014, Prince announced a new deal with Warner Brothers. Said deal let Prince not only keep any future master recordings, but also gave him back the master recordings to all of his past Warner Brothers albums. Hell yeah, dude. Later, in September 2014, we got 2 new albums from Prince on the same day. Plectrumelectrum with Third Eye Girl, and Art Official Age on his own. Let's start with Plectrumelectrum, the more straightforward of the two. It definitely embraces old school rock and blues, almost like a spiritual successor to Chaos and Disorder, except, you know, Prince actually wanted to release it. If nothing else, it's proof that this new band was pretty dang good. Everybody gets ample space to shine. Hannah even sings on a good chunk of these songs. There's the opener Wow that hooked itself into my head with the chorus. There's the smooth Whitecaps and Tic-Tac-Toe, the headbanger Funk and Roll. Boy Trouble is a sparser cut with 2 rap verses, one by Sophie Aris and one by... Wait, that's Lizzo. Lizzo like 5 years before she got really popular. That's really neat. While the record has bright spots for sure, I do sometimes run into the old NPG issue. On songs that don't feature Prince as much, I find it harder to stay invested. Thankfully though, if I'm missing Prince, I can just go over to Art Official Age. This is a solo show in the sense that it's credited to just Prince, but it has a couple guests, Andy Allo, Delilah, and 3 features by Lianne La Havas. Hell, it's even the first Prince album to have a co-producer, Joshua Welton, Hannah Welton's husband. Art Official Cage is very funny. It is, and I mean this kindly, Prince's version of LMFAO. I kinda love it. Breakfast Can Wait was the first single released way back in 2013. It's a smooth R&B jam, but it's most noteworthy for its single artwork. Dave Chappelle from that one Chappelle Show sketch where he dressed up as Prince holding pancakes.
That's a Prince judo move right there.
Is that what, pancakes?
Well, no, it's like, you know, you make fun of Prince in a sketch and he'll just use you in his album cover.
He uses your own joke against yourself.
That's exactly. What am I gonna do? Sue him for using a picture of me dressed up like it was impossible?
If the Chappelle cover wasn't enough of a meme for you, there's also This Could Be Us, which gets its title from the classic meme, This Could Be Us, but you playin'. Maybe it's the meme juice flowing, but I think this is another great jam. Clouds vaguely reminds me of Wolfpack's Back Pocket, which is an incredibly good thing. Time is an excellent ballad with a tender performance by Andy Allo, one of my favorite late-stage Prince ballads.
I think I'm running out of patience.
Breakdown was another single, and it's another great ballad, and Funk and Roll also appears on AOA, though this time it's a Timbaland-esque club track. So yeah, they're both fine records, though between these two, I think I like AOA more. Plekalek is a good album, but a better sales pitch for a Third Eye Girl live show. AOA gets weirder, and when it connects, it does so with flying colors. Both Plec and AOA were decent successes, and shortly after their release, Prince went out on the Hit and Run Part 2 tour. Like before, these shows were announced very close to them actually happening. I guess Prince realized that the tour name made for a good album name, because in September 2015, we got Hit and Run Phase One, exclusively on Tidal. $1 Million Show starts with bits from the opening songs from For You, 1999, and Purple Rain. The rest of the song is not on that level. Why would you invite direct comparison like that? Aside from that though, Hit and Run Phase 1 spends the rest of its runtime very much separating itself from the rest of Prince's albums, with Joshua Welton back on as co-producer. In short, imagine if Prince led the Black Eyed Peas circa Boom Boom Pow, and you're roughly in the ballpark with this one. The 2010s club sound was very much in the room for this one, with synth-heavy production on Mr. Nelson or Fall in Love Tonight, pitched down vocals on Ain't About to Stop, a reworked version of This Could Be Us. There's even a feature from Rita Ora. That's how 2010s this album is. I think it's very cool that Prince was still experimenting so late into his career. And while Hit and Run Phase 1 is inconsistent in my view, I admire that it tries to keep up with the times. A title with Phase 1 naturally invites questions as to follow-up phases, and so a follow-up was announced on Twitter 3 months after Phase 1's release. A fan asked Prince on Twitter if we'd get a second phase, and Prince said, "Warner Brothers Records has it already, petition them to release it."
Ah, the more things change.
Hit and Run Phase 2 got a surprise drop solely on Tidal in December 2015. As opposed to the original material on Phase 1, Phase 2 is mostly previously released tracks that adhere to the tried and true Prince sound. Baltimore was written as a Black Lives Matter anthem following the murder of Freddie Gray, and it is excellent. What starts as a lovely blues track soon grows with strings and chants of great work. I don't think the other songs reach the same heights as Baltimore, but there are still some gems. Extra Lovable, Look at Me, Look at You, Black Muse, The Closer, Big City. These really are Prince at his royal supreme. I will also say, the album as a whole sounds great. Prince's best mixed album since Rainbow Children. And man, I wish I liked this more. I mean, I do like it, of course, but I wish I loved it, because that was it. That was Prince's last mainline studio album. Okay, so here's a summary of how the next few months unfolded. In January 2016, Prince kicked off the Piano and a Microphone tour. The core idea was Prince on stage with just a piano, sitting and playing through his songs. The shows got rave reviews, but in reality, they were masking the fact that Prince was going through rough hip pain, as all those years of performing were catching up with him. Apparently, he was recommended hip surgery back in 2009, but Jehovah's Witnesses aren't allowed to do blood transfusions. On April 14th, Prince brought the tour to Atlanta. He then took a flight back to Minneapolis, but suffered a seizure and was transported to a hospital. Within 3 hours of getting there, though, he was discharged and posted online that he was just dealing with flu-like symptoms. On the 16th, he held a party at Paisley Park, and on the 19th, he went to a Liz Wright concert. The only times he was seen the next 2 days were trips to Walgreens to pick up prescriptions. On the morning of April 21st, emergency services were called to Paisley Park. They found Prince unresponsive in an elevator and pronounced him dead, later finding the cause of death to be an overdose on counterfeit fentanyl tablets.
I remember vividly where I was when I heard the news. Back in college, I used to do sound for my school's music department, and right before an afternoon show, I saw the news on like Facebook, and I showed my buddy who I was doing sound with, and we were both, shocked. The show happens. It's about an hour later. I'm going to class with some friends, and all of them had heard too. Like, this news was spreading like wildfire. And when we get to class, we tell our professor, and the rest of the class kind of just becomes us talking about Prince, because it was shocking, and it is still kind of shocking. Like, he was 57 when he passed. That's young for somebody to go. And even putting that aside, the man just seemed immortal. It doesn't necessarily seem right that he's not with us anymore.
I often dream of heaven and I know that Prince is there.
He's found another friend.
Maybe he's found the answer to all the April snow. Maybe one day I'll see my Tracy again.
In the years since his passing, we've seen a mix of expanded re-releases and posthumous albums. First, there was Piano and a Microphone 1983, a one-take live recording from Prince's home studio. Then there was Originals, a compilation of Prince performing a bunch of songs that he had written for other people, like Nothing Compares to You and Manic Monday. Welcome to America, released in July 2021, as the first posthumous album of original Prince material. The backstory here is that in 2008, Prince found an Australian bassist on YouTube. A few months later, he invited her out to record an album with drummer Chris Coleman, but then it just never got released for whatever reason. And finally, that long-shelved Camille album is apparently getting a release through Third Man Records sometime this year.
No, fingerprints.
I don't think so.
God, I am so tired. If you want to get into Prince, the run from Dirty Mind to Batman is basically untouchable. It is an incredible run of albums that you should check out if you are new to Prince. After that, my personal favorite albums were Diamond and Pearls, Love Symbol, The Gold Experience, Chaos and Disorder, The Rainbow Children, One Nite Alone, Musicology, 3121, Artificial Age, and HITNRUN Phase Two. And if you have a favorite Prince song, album, related thing, I would love to know what it is in the comments.